Thank you so much. Okay. So I'm not trying to be different here. I just feel so comfortable holding this mic. Okay. I like to have two things in my hands. But anyways, I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for having me here at the Athens Summit. It has been so wonderful to meet so many different people today. And I haven't actually met all of you yet. So I'm actually looking forward to meeting, connecting with everyone a bit later on. So I want to start off with a very similar goal that we all actually have, which is we know that football brings a lot of skills and talent, but what we all really want is what makes that edge, what gives us that winning edge in football. We are all striving to obviously win and become the best, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about the power of psychology. Woo. Oh gosh, that's fast. Oh gosh, that's not supposed to happen. But okay, right. So let me start again. So I'm going to start a little bit about myself. I wanted to show you my football pictures first, and then the tennis one. But the slides are not helping me here. So my background, I have worked with 6 different football clubs over my years of being a performance psychologist. That's 7 years of applied work. Alongside working with these football clubs, I have had a chance to, if I can do a quick snippet. Oh, look at that, side project with ex-footballer Tony Morley in the football world. And I've also had a chance of working with young, up-and-coming footballers, working within youth academy players as well. So that's been my side project, as long as working with football clubs too. Now, the tennis side of things is also my background. I have a huge tennis background. So I was growing up playing tennis, but I was growing up in a very football-orientated family. So I was put into a Liverpool kit at the age of 6 months. So that has never left that site since then. But my tennis background has been from my playing career, but I've also had the chance to travel to different ITF events. So the image on the right is me in Germany working with the ITF players there, and on the left-hand side is me in Bahrain. I've had the opportunities of going to Dubai and Canada as well. I'd say the biggest thing I've learned of becoming a performance psychologist is the definition of what success is. Growing up as a young athlete, you know, you are programmed to win and achieve. But one of the biggest things I've learned about success and defining that is how do we make impact to other people's lives? And that was one of the biggest things I learned being a psychologist. Okay, moving on. I want to touch upon my tennis career. So I grew up as a junior playing tennis, picture on the right, and then me as a senior. And guess what? I still play. I cannot get out of tennis. I have to still be competitive. So I still play in my club leagues. And the reason why I want to share my tennis career is because I've actually been one of those young athletes growing up in the competitive field, dealing with pressure. So when I was younger, when I was a junior on the right-hand side, I didn't deal with pressure in a great way. And I think one of the biggest reasons could be is because my family wasn't great at dealing with pressure. So it didn't really help me. And I used to perceive pressure as threat more than actually a challenge. And throughout my career as growing up, I had a coach that specifically helped me from the psychological side of things, and that was a game changer for me. And then growing up, I had different challenges. So my psychological challenges were more around my anxiety. So as you get older as a player, you tend to build so many experiences, and then the anxiety builds up because you're an older player now, and you're competing against young 18-year-old girls on the tour, and there's me at 23 thinking, God, I'm going to get absolutely thrashed by an 18-year-old here. I don't know how I feel about that. So that was my kind of inner challenges that I had. And then there's me on the left-hand side, still competing, and I still have to be part of tennis. One of the biggest learning curves for me playing tennis was how much the mindset influenced my game massively. It had a massive impact, and hence why I am here right now talking about it. Okay, so I don't know why these animations are coming really fast. They're not supposed to come really fast, but let's just roll with them. Okay, I really want to dive into and speak about my role as a performance psychologist, and this is how I perceive it working. Now, a performance psychologist is defined in the dictionary as optimizing performance. How I define it as being an athlete. The reason why I define it as being an athlete is because being an athlete is, if you think about all the elite managers and all the great athletes, they actually are great psychologists. They have conquered the world of psychology. So for me to understand an athlete's mindset, I live and breathe my life like that. So that's where I think a major part gets missed in the world of psychology, because the elite athletes will ask you, well, hold on a minute, you are giving me that advice, but have you actually done it yourself? Do you know what it feels like? And they will challenge you on those things. So I see myself as an athlete, but my expertise in performance in psychology. The next part of my role is about guidance. I believe that a lot of athletes are very good experts at psychology. They know exactly what resilience feels like. They know exactly what confidence feels like. My job is to guide them in the right direction. It was only recently I was on a podcast at a university, and they asked me a question around, what do you think massively hinders the mental health of athletes? And for me personally, I think it is the lack of guidance and the right direction with athletes and the people around them. Their environment is so crucial and so important. And if I look back at my career growing up, that applies to me as well, having the right guidance. So I think guidance is such a big thing. The third thing is connection for me. Connection is having a deep-rooted connection with an athlete. It's beyond the sport. It's more than that. And when you have that relationship with an athlete, you gain so much trust, and which is a big thing in the world of sports, because they do lack a lot of trust with how they've grown up and the people around them. So the most important thing for me is to gain that trust and rapport, but it's actually to get to know them more than them as an athlete. And the last thing is a champion. I am one of the biggest cheerleaders. So if you're on my team, I will empower you, encourage you. I'm your biggest supporter, and I'll tell you why. Because I think a lot of athletes, from my experiences, and me being an athlete as well, you don't really get many people cheering for you and actually believing in you. And that's one of my personal experiences. And from my experiences working with athletes, they feel just as the same, because you have to think that parents also feel the huge amount of pressure of their child, and the coach also does. So if you're on my team, you're going to be my biggest cheerleader, and I will be your cheerleader as well. Okay. So let me talk to you about this little story. I was at Birmingham City Football Club working with the first team ladies and the girls' academy in 2022-2023 season. And the reason why I bring this case study up is because they didn't have a performance psychologist. They didn't have a sports psychologist. I was the first one walking in there. So I had to deal with a lot of perceptions around what they were thinking and what was going on. Now, I remember when I sat down with the manager, the first thing he said to me was, my team lacks connection. My team lacks chemistry. And by the way, the manager just walked in as well. So it was only a month in until the managers just walked into this club. So that was one case I had. On the other side, I had a lot of anxious players. I can tell you, the day that I spoke to the players to ask them what their needs were, they all wanted to sign up for a one-to-one straight away. I had 11 signed up on the first day. So I said to the manager, you're not going to see me for 2 weeks. I'm dealing with your players on a one-to-one straight away. And the whole idea about this was, my outcome for this was to create high levels of self-awareness, because there was a lot of things that the club didn't know, or they didn't understand. My second thing is to create high levels of openness, okay? Because these players haven't had this support and no one's had that support in the club. So it was really about creating this openness where they can actually express and feel their emotions, which they've been holding in for a long time. And that then helped to build the connection on the pitch a lot more because the girls became more expressive. In terms of chemistry as well, we wasn't just working off the pitch, we was also working on the pitch. So there was applied psychology strategies applied on the pitch to build that chemistry between the team. And then hopefully the whole idea was for them to be connected. So that's just a little case study, of me working in a team environment. So the real question is, what is performance psychology in football? And I define it as something that's not seen and it's intangible, but it really is something that makes a huge difference. It's really about the resilience, the confidence, the optimism, the things that we don't see is what makes a massive difference. And these players that have come through to the academy, they're good. They've got talent. They've got skills. But it's how to transform them from good to great players. One of my biggest challenges in the world of football, even in any kind of sport as well, is how psychology has been perceived. Sports psychology is for the weak players. He or she's got a serious mental illness, so you need to go and see a sports psychologist. There has been so many different challenges that I had to overcome in terms of the perception of psychology in the world of football, just because of the culture stigma, the lack of awareness and education, and also it being so result-driven. That's what all they see. And the reason why psychology is challenging or is not being seen is because it's intangible. And if you really think about it, everything around us is around psychology. We are here right now, it's all about psychology. We interact with people, it's all about psychology. Me coming on stage was about psychology, it was about programming my mind. Marius this morning was preparing his speech in front of me, you know. It's all about psychology, it's our thoughts, it's our emotions, and that's what influences our behaviors. But we just don't see it. It's so intangible and we just don't take notice of it. So for me, it's about those blind spots. It's those blind spots that make a difference. Okay, moving on to the next bit, which is I have put together the major things that I think are really important for training the young youth players in their academy. Focus is one area. Now, one of the reasons why I've put focus on there is because, like I gave you the example of how I perceived pressure when I was younger, because I saw it as a threat, a lot of these players see the same way when it comes to pressure. I'm actually currently dealing with a player right now from Aston Villa Academy, great player, one of the top players in his team. He is fear motivated. So everything is driven on fear. He's worried about losing. He's worried about not getting his spot in the team. He's worried about what his dad thinks. He's worried about things around him in terms of his team. Everything that he does is motivated on fear, and that's how he perceives pressure. So I think in the early ages of young athletes is making them understand of how we perceive pressure. And I wish I did that very early on in my career as well. It's a massive part of sports. Second thing, well-being. Now, throughout my experiences of working with football clubs, well-being gets dismissed. There's a lack of empathy. There's a lack of well-being in the areas of football because it's so result-driven. But it's the biggest areas. When I first walked into one of the football clubs that I worked in, a young player, 16-year-old, his sister passed away about a year ago with severe cancer. And I didn't know about this, by the way. He then got released on the day of release day, and I only found out what actually happened in his life. he was a great player. But if we understood the well-being and gave him support from the mental health perspective on that, it makes a big difference. Remember, these are humans, they're not just athletes. You are dealing with humans that are going through difficulties as well. So I think that's a big thing. The other thing is character. We want to build exceptional characters from the youth. Because when you build exceptional characters, you'll have exceptional players in the world of sports. Sports is all about results. It's all about winning. It's all about that achievement. But what about building great characters? And I think you can start that off very young, at a very early age, is developing these characters to become leaders, to become elite. It just gives them that head start that a lot of these senior players are trying to do now. So at the end of the day, it's not about being football stars. It's about being a better person, a stronger person, a person that can understand the actual real battles of being in performance. And I've put communication and chemistry underneath there because those are two biggest things I have come across with it when it comes to team settings. I'm not breathing, by the way. I'm not breathing heavily down this. I don't know why it's making those noises. So connection and chemistry is one of the biggest two characters in a team setting environment. And that is when you have the connection, when you have the communication, when you have the team cohesion, you make better decisions as a team. And that's how that team can elevate. Right. So I had to put the differences of psychology in here. Let's now talk about that. Males and females in the world of football. So I have worked with senior males and females. I have also worked with young males and females. And I've focused on 3 common areas here. So communication is one of the biggest ones. Women are really good at opening up for social, emotional support. They will express everything. They will tell you everything in a space of 10 minutes when you're sitting with them in a one-to-one room. They're quick at opening up. Men, on the other hand, are really reserved. They will avoid speaking. They're probably not want to talk about it unless you start asking them more questions. Focus. Women are more focused about building relationships. They're more focused around the social dynamics of a group. They love doing that. That's their motivation. Whereas men, on the other hand, they love personal challenges. They're all about themselves. They're all about the competition. That's what their massive focus is. Stress management is another one. So stress, women tend to come and speak and express that. They also challenge you with, why are you asking me to do this? Why are you doing this? Whereas men, on the other hand, they accept it, they get it, they carry on, and they probably won't even question it. So there's a bit of a difference that I've found throughout my work. Okay, so I just want to finish off and wrap this up by what I actually believe, and that's my success philosophy. I'm a massive believer is that success is really and truly about how you leave others feeling after an experience. Now, I'm sure that everyone here can think of one coach, one mentor, one person in their life that's had a huge impact in their life. And you know the reason why as well. It's because how they made you feel. So, Jim, yesterday, you asked me, where am I from? And you also asked me what I'm famous for. So obviously you know where I'm from the West Midlands in England. Very obvious with the accent. But what I'm famous for is leaving that trademark, and that's my answer. I need to get back to you on that one. Okay, and that is me. Thank you so much for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. Please come and speak to me. Any questions, any thoughts? I would love that. Thank you so much.